Andrew Williams.
Chair, I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First on this bill, and can I say that when this first came before the House, New Zealand First did oppose it because we had concerns about the Clause 10, the purpose of the bill, and we were one of the opposition parties that lodged a minority report seeking a change to the bill because the previous wording very much talked about a balance between economic development and the environment, and that's a very subjective word in terms of what is a balance. Is a balance 50-50? Where is the balance? And if the economic factors are a certain level, will they override the environmental ones? We're very pleased that the Minister, after a meeting with a delegation from the opposition, reviewed that and was able to see fit to change the wording of the purpose of the bill, and as a result New Zealand First will be supporting this bill through the committee stage and through to the third reading. Mr Speaker, in supporting the bill, New Zealand First firstly would like to say that we have always said we will support economic development where it is environmentally sustainable, and we would hope and expect in good faith that the changes that the government have agreed to in terms of the purpose of the Act, of the bill and this Act when it comes into being, will provide sufficient safeguards for the environment to ensure that the environment basically is of course the bottom line. And in that respect, we do want to see economic development in this country. New Zealand First has always said that we want to see economic development providing it is sustainable in that manner. And in terms of this bill, we have to remember that we are sitting on the 5th largest economic zone, exclusive economic zone in the world, with our 200-mile limit being a very, very, potentially valuable resource for this small nation of 4.5 million people, and therefore it is important that we do have a regime in place that will cover this, and to not have this up until now and to only have legislation that basically was taking into account the 12-mile limit but leaving the vast majority of the seas out there within our zone really open to all sorts of interpretation, then that was a big risk. So New Zealand First certainly wants to see this enacted so that can be closed off to the benefit of all. We also acknowledge all the submitters that came to the Select Committee and many very good organisations who made some very constructive suggestions, much of which has also been taken up in terms of some of the amendments by the government, and in particular Dr Jan Wright, the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, who gave some very sound reasoning on a number of issues, and again the Minister and the government have taken up on a number of those matters. However, there is still concern in parts of the opposition in terms of some of the clauses, and we can understand that, and we know that there perhaps are some technical terms and some of the wording could be considered to be still slightly ambiguous, perhaps could be slightly misconstrued if misinterpreted. So there should be still perhaps some opportunity for some discussion on some of those minor points, but we're not going to die in the ditch on that. We're not going to stop this bill as a result, but perhaps the Minister would still be mindful that if there is any room for any still minor considerations in regards to some of those other clauses, then that would also be helpful and would show good faith again in terms of getting good support. And we would hope at the end, because this is such an important issue for this country, we would hope that in the end that perhaps the whole of this Parliament can support this bill, because at the end of the day, when you have got this huge economic zone out there which is going to have a direct impact on all of our people in this country, that we can have a collective buy-in from Parliament to try and do the very best by that economic zone. Can I just also point out that in terms of this, many of the aspirations in this bill have been things that New Zealand First has had long-held belief in terms of what is required for our country. In terms of this, we have always said through our manifesto that we would seek an urgent introduction of interim standards for drilling and exploratory work in New Zealand waters, designed to meet New Zealand maritime conditions while more comprehensive standards are worked out. And this must also include provisions for... Mr Speaker?
Andrew Williams.
We also have stated in the past that we would have a requirement that all drilling, exploration and extraction projects in New Zealand waters be subject to public consultation. Exploration must be subject to the public concerns being mitigated. And again, Mr Chairman, we expect that through this bill and by having this legislation in place, this will be a platform to allow a full and open public consultation on projects that are planned in the economic zone. We also, however, Mr Chairman, would sound a warning that we have always asked that we set up and train appropriate people and organisations to the risk rapid response teams to deal with maritime environmental emergencies that can be deployed at short notice in New Zealand or abroad. And I think that is something that this Parliament does and this Government needs to give further consideration to in the future, because if we are going to see increased activity in our economic zone and where we potentially, and touch wood, we would never see it happen, but where potentially there could be a risk out of some of the activities to our marine environment. I think the very least that we should ensure that we have is the appropriate response capabilities to deal with that. And I think if in the next year or two, and perhaps as economic situation perhaps improves, we need to be mindful that New Zealand maybe has to beef up its maritime services and maritime New Zealand capabilities to deal with any contingency that might arise. Mr Speaker, in closing, can I just repeat, New Zealand First will be supporting this, and we see great merit in it. I'd like to just congratulate the members of the Local Government and Environment Committee who were involved in this. I think we've been sitting on it for 4 or 5 months now. There have been a huge number of submissions. A large number of organisations and individuals and people around New Zealand have submitted on it. It's been a very good exercise in terms of public consultation of this. It's also been a good exercise in alerting the government to some of their concerns and the government responding to some of those concerns in an appropriate manner. As a result, I think we have got a reasonably good level of legislation here which we can support, and New Zealand First commends the bill to the House.
Nikki Kay.
To take a call on this committee stage. I want to start off by just acknowledging the purpose of this bill and the amendment